All right, thanks everyone. Thanks for joining the webinar. For those of you that haven't seen my face before, I think most of you wouldn't. My name is Pat. I look after the training side of things at Fronius. And I'm joined by one of our solutions engineers, Marcus. So Marcus has had a lot to do with our hybrid inverter range, the Gen24, Gen24 Plus, and also the Verto and Verto Plus range, which we'll be talking about as well during the webinar. And he's also had a lot to do with the Reserva. So he's like our in-house expert on all of these products. So really great that he can join us today. Thank you, Marcus.
Thank you. Hello, everyone.
Cool. So jumping into the agenda of what we're going to be going through today. Essentially, we'll cover the following topics. So a quick solar and battery 101. I know that some of you do already have solar, but there are some people that are new to the solar game and are thinking about getting solar. So we'll cover a few basics. We'll then go through who is Fronius, the company, who we are, and why choose us for your solar journey. We will go through why it's the best time right now to get a battery. We'll cover things like rebates and feed-in tariffs and things like this. We'll then do a quick overview of the Reserva and then the compatible inverters that it works with and how you can upgrade your Gen24 if you already have one of those to make it battery ready. Then I'll be handing over to Marcus, who will take us through the Reserva specifications and features. We'll look at the Fronius ecosystem and how the Reserva fits into that. And then we'll do a bit of a summary on the Reserva to wrap it all up. Okay, so looking at how solar works, the very basics. So we have our solar panels, we have our solar inverter, we've got our loads, so you know, your house, your appliances, or if you're a business owner, your premises and all the appliances, etc. in there. We've got the grid, and I've also included a smart meter here. So not all systems have a smart meter, but you know, it really is an essential piece of hardware to have visibility over your energy flow and allow you to make better decisions about your energy usage. In fact, in some states, you will actually need to have a smart meter for regulatory controls as well. So that smart meter is essentially looking at the power going in and out, and it'll let you know how much is being consumed on the site, how much is coming from the grid, and how much is being exported from the solar system back to the grid. So yeah, without it, you're almost flying blind, and it's a really good thing to have. Okay, so what happens is the solar panels will take sunlight and they will convert that into DC power, and then the solar inverter will take that DC power and convert it into AC power. So that's what essentially all the loads in the house or the premises will be working on, and also what the grid will be working on as well. Okay, so the inverter's like the brain of the system. It controls everything and it makes all the decisions. Okay, so but that's its basic function, to convert DC to AC. Now they do a lot more than that, and we'll touch on some of that stuff later on. Now, without a battery, you aren't able to store any energy. So it either gets used by the loads, or the excess might be able to be sent to the grid, and we'll talk a bit more about export limitation and regulations later, and what you're actually getting for sending power to the grid if you're able to. But if you don't have a battery, yeah, you can't store any of that energy. Solar is only going to really work for you during the day, right? So you can't use that power at night. So if you want to add on a battery, you now have the choice between a DC coupled battery or an AC coupled battery. So what is this? So Fronius's new battery, the Reserva, which we're going to talk about, is a DC coupled battery, which means that it works with a compatible hybrid inverter, such as the Gen24 Plus, as we can see here, or the Verto Plus, which Marcus will cover that in a bit more detail later. Now, the DC coupled battery, you can see our Reserva here, is attached directly to the inverter, okay? Now, the panels are producing DC power, remember from the slide before, so they're producing DC power, and this battery, the DC coupled battery, will accept that DC power as it is. So no conversion is required as it comes through the inverter and then goes through to the battery. Now, when you want to use it for your loads, that is then converted by the inverter into AC power, okay? And then it goes into the loads as AC power, okay? Now, with an AC coupled battery, that's not directly connected to the inverter. It's on the AC side of the system, okay? Now, the panels are producing DC, as we know. The inverter will put out AC power, okay? And then this AC coupled battery has its own little inverter in it. That's what's drawn there. That's an inverter symbol. So that's there because it's going to take that AC power in, and then it'll be able to convert it to DC power, which is how the battery is going to store it, right? So the AC coupled battery means it can only accept AC power to charge it. And then, yeah, it stores it as DC power. And then when you want to use it, it's essentially going to be converted back into AC power to be sent to the loads. So in terms of benefits of having a DC coupled battery, one of the ones that you might have been able to pick up on is efficiency. Okay, so with a DC coupled battery, you essentially have one conversion, right? So going in as DC, and then it gets converted to AC to go to your loads. With the AC coupled battery, it's getting converted from DC to AC, right? It goes in and then gets converted again to be stored as DC, and then it gets converted again to go out as AC power, all right? So, and with each conversion, there are losses. So DC coupled batteries use your solar power more efficiently. And over time, that can mean quite a bit in terms of savings, in terms of energy, and then associated savings in terms of financial benefits as well. Another thing with DC coupled batteries is that you can do true three-phase backup if you've got an inverter that can do that. So both the Gen24, Simo Gen24 Plus and the Verto Plus can do three-phase backup. So that's true three-phase backup. So for those of you that have three-phase loads, that could be quite important as well, okay? Lastly, you can also have more PV capacity. So this is particularly important on single-phase sites. So essentially, grid providers will often limit the maximum total inverter capacity that's allowed on the site. So for example, to 10 kilowatts. Now, with a AC coupled battery, it has that inverter in it, but you're not attaching any panels to it. It's purely just to do the conversion there as the power goes in. But that inverter will also count towards the site's inverter capacity. So say you had a 10 kilowatt inverter. So say our Primo Gen24 Plus 10 kilowatt inverter, you look at its oversizing ratio. So for that inverter, it's 150%, meaning it's a 10 kilowatt inverter. So 150%, that'd be 15. You can have 15 kilowatts worth of PV attached to it. So 15 kilowatts worth of panels. With an AC coupled battery, say if you had a solar inverter in it, which was a 5 kilowatt solar inverter, right? Sorry, a 5 kilowatt inverter. And then you have your hybrid inverter, which now means you can only have a 5 kilowatt solar inverter. That means with that 150% oversizing ratio, you'd have 7.5 kilowatts attached to it, right? So just purely an example, but yeah, it shows that how you can get more PV attached to the inverter, which means that, you know, you're going to be able to have more power output for a lot of the day. Okay, so I've been talking about power, energy. This is one that trips people up, even those working within the solar industry. So let's cover that quickly. So power is essentially the rate at which something uses or produces energy or stores it as well, right? So how fast energy is being consumed or generated, it's measured in kilowatts, okay? So think of it kind of like the speed of a car, like 60 kilometers per hour. It's telling you how quickly the energy is flowing, right? Then, so if you took, say, a 3 kilowatt appliance, like I don't know, like a kettle or air conditioning or something like this, right? So say you had a 3 kilowatt appliance, just purely a number here, a theoretical number. It's going to use energy faster than a 1 kilowatt appliance. So your solar system size is measured in kilowatts. So for example, a 6.6 kilowatt solar system can produce up to 6.6 kilowatts of power under ideal conditions, all right? You're also limited to what the inverter can push out. Then we've got energy. So this is how much electricity is used, stored, or produced over time. So it's power as times multiplied by time, right? So think of it like the car fuel used on a trip, okay? So like 1 kilowatt hour is using 1 kilowatt for 1 hour, okay? So if you had a 2 kilowatt heater and you ran it for 3 hours, you've used 2 kilowatts times 3 now, so 6 kilowatt hours worth of energy, okay? And your electricity bill is based on how many kilowatt hours you use. So another analogy, if we use water, so kilowatts is the speed of the water flow, kilowatt hours is the total amount that has flowed, okay? Your battery capacity, as you can see here, so this is our Reserva, the largest stack that you could have is 15.8 kilowatt hours, right? So your battery capacity is in kilowatt hours, so how much energy it can store. The solar output is in kilowatts, so you know how fast you're able to generate that energy, and how fast you can send it out, right? And that also relates to how fast you're going to be able to charge up the battery as well, right? So the inverter is going to be able to charge it up at a certain rate and discharge it at a certain rate. And Marcus is going to cover that in a bit more detail later on, right? So if we just use an even number, say a battery that's storing 10 kilowatt hours can power 1 kilowatts of loads for 10 hours, or 5 kilowatts of loads for 2 hours. All right. Cool. So now that we've covered some of the basics of solar and battery storage, let's look at Fronius, the company. If you don't know much about us already, and why you should partner with us for your solar journey. So the Fronius story starts in 1945, so we've been around for over 80 years now. Starts with this gentleman here, Gunter Fronius. He essentially saw that car batteries, once they died, once they reached the end of life, they would be thrown out. Okay, so he said, this isn't the best way to do things. I'm going to invent a battery charger, and that's essentially the birth of Fronius. So we started off with selling battery chargers, and what I really like there is that this is a long, long time ago, before sustainability was a buzzword. But this guy had the mindset to do something from a sustainability point of view, right? And so he also wanted to have a successful business. So, you know, he had to turn a profit, and profit's important. Otherwise, we still wouldn't be here today. But he also wanted to do something that was going to, you know, essentially help the environment. And we'll touch on that in a bit more detail as well. So we still have our charging unit. We call it perfect charging now. We don't make battery chargers for cars, but it's more so for the logistics industry. So for forklifts and things like this. We moved into welding 5 years later in 1950. So we make very high quality welders. I mean, all of our products are premium high quality products, but a lot of people know us from the welding industry. So, you know, we've been used on the SpaceX project, for example, and various other high-end manufacturers will choose our welding equipment to be used in their manufacturing process as well. And then we moved into the renewable space in 1992, making solar inverters, but we've now gone past solar inverters. We're also, you know, involved in making batteries, EV chargers, and so forth. And Marcus will touch on that later on. So essentially, we've got 3 business units which focus on different areas of power electronics, but all of them have a commonality, which is power conversion. You know, whether it's AC to DC or DC to AC, across all of them, we've got experience in power conversion. So we are, in effect, power conversion specialists. These 3 business units are also diversified over 3 different industries. So the welding industry is mainly tied to manufacturing, the charging industry is mainly tied to logistics, and then the solar energy business unit is tied to the renewables industry. So that business diversification gives us financial stability. So for example, during the global financial crisis in 2008, manufacturing took a big hit, and so therefore welding took a bit of a hit. But because we had these other business units, we're able to ride through that unscathed, right? So what that means with the financial stability is that we're going to be around in the long term to look after our customers and honor warranties. You know, so many companies have come into the renewable space, into the solar space, a lot of them promising long warranties and various bells and whistles in terms of what their products can do, and now they're no longer around. So we've been around for 80 years, and we plan to continue to be around for at least the next 80 as well, but a lot longer than that, I'm sure. This is a snapshot of what the company looks like now. So some facts and figures. We've got over 1,700 patents to our name. We've got more than 6,600 employees worldwide. 38 international subsidiaries, so Australia being one of those. But we also export to countries, and we have countries with sales partners in there as well. So we basically cover most of the world. Here in Australia, in our subsidiary, we have 54 staff now. So when I joined, it was in the mid 30s, I believe. So that was about 5.5 years ago, almost. So we have, as part of that team, our own repair center, our service and tech support team, all here locally. So yeah, all your required support is here locally. If anything needs to be repaired, doesn't need to go offshore, we can diagnose and repair things here as well. So I was talking about how the company started off with this man, Günther Fronius. He handed on the reins to his son and daughter, Klaus Fronius and Brigitte Strauss. They effectively globalized Fronius. They took us around the world and really took it to the next level. And now it's actually the granddaughter of Günther Fronius, Mrs. Elizabeth Strauss, who is the head honcho of Fronius. So it's still a family-owned company, still privately owned. And what that means is we have the ability to make our own decisions about the trajectory of the company, what we invest in, what products we want to bring to market and all that. We're not beholden to external shareholders, okay? We are also one of the only manufacturers coming out of Europe in terms of the solar energy space, and something that we're quite proud about. We're known for our reliable products. We'll touch on that in a bit more detail as well. Really strict quality assurance processes and also strict data security as well, okay? So yeah, we'll touch on that in more detail. So when manufacturing our products, we don't just want to make, say, an inverter that's just generating energy. We want to produce the most sustainable and green energy, right? So we have a strong focus on making sustainable products and running our business in the most sustainable way possible. And we have a team over at Fronius International, over at our headquarters, that focuses specifically on these topics. So they're our corporate responsibility team, and that includes responsible sourcing of materials and ethical supply chain management, all the way through to how we generate power to make the products themselves. So here's a small snapshot. So this photo is actually one I took. It's of our production facility in Satellite, showing PV, which is used for manufacturing purposes. So we use renewable energy for production. So at least 81% of that is renewable energy, and then the rest is actually offset. So the other 19 or so percent. We also use recycled components in the production. So for example, the Gen24 heatsink is made out of 100% recycled aluminium. And we also reuse and recycle components as much as possible at the end of life. So when we get back an inverter, we'll try to utilize as much of that as possible. And we have a whole refurbished stock of inverters as well that we use. So as I mentioned, that heatsink on the Gen24 is made out of 100% recycled aluminium. So that's about 324 cans. If you were to take, you know, like a normal can of beer or soft drink, it's about 324 of those cans. So apart from being sustainable in terms of what it's made from, it also serves a critical function. So one of the reasons our inverters are very reliable and last a long time is because of this concept that we call active cooling. So a lot of inverters out there in the residential space don't have active cooling. What they have is passive cooling, okay? So passive cooling essentially will just have hot air being circulated around the internals of the inverter. And with that, you can have hotspots forming. Whereas with active cooling, what happens is the air is extracted by a fan and then pushed out over a heat sink. So if we go back to this slide, So this fan here with the Gen24 Plus is taking out the hot air and then pushing it out over this spiralized heat sink. Okay, and in that way, the hot air is dispersed. Because there's this rule, the Arrhenius rule, like an engineering principle, whenever you add 10 degrees Celsius to an electrical component, you're basically halving its lifespan, okay? So our engineers and experts over in R&D know from all this experience in power conversion technology that we've been involved in for over 80 years, they know that to get the best results and to have our electrical components being as reliable as possible, and therefore the whole product being as reliable as possible and lasting for as long as possible, we need to have this active cooling. And that's really important in areas where you have hot temperatures. So, especially in a place like Australia, where we have temperatures that can crack over 40 degrees Celsius in some parts, right? So yeah, keeping those electrical components stay cool extends their lifetime. It also increases the yield that you get. It is because essentially the inverter doesn't derate as often. What do I mean by derating? It means that it's going to reduce how much power it can put out, right? So again, very important in Australia where we have high temperatures. So here's a study that we did comparing one of our inverters to a passively cooled inverter, right? And when it got to a certain temperature, the passively cooled inverter would start to derate, right? So at that hottest time of the day. Whereas with our inverter, we were able to have all this extra yield in that particular study. It was about 15% more yield. And that's essentially more power that you can be using and effectively reducing your power bill. So it's going to be giving you more savings over the lifetime of the system. So I mentioned active cooling is very important for reliability. And as I said before, we are well known within this industry for reliability, and we've built a name for ourselves in making really durable, reliable products. And how we are able to do that is, some features like active cooling, but we also do a lot of intensive lab and real world field testing before we release a product to the market. So a more reliable product is essentially going to be a more happy customer, right? So less problems and more peace of mind for you guys. We also have a full 10-year warranty on all of our inverters since the end of 2024. Okay, so we do backup products with a full 10-year warranty. Everything's actually designed for a 20-year lifespan. And we actually have examples of some of our older inverters still ticking along after being around for that amount of time, like the Sunrise inverter or the IG series are getting quite old as well. And I've seen examples of those still ticking along. So reliability, it also plays into sustainability. We want to create products that last a long time to avoid generation of waste materials. And for those of you that are interested and want to do a bit of research, it's pretty horrendous how many solar panels, but also solar inverters just end up in landfill quite quickly. Some of them after not that many years of being in use. Lastly, I mentioned that we are one of the last manufacturers left coming out of Europe in the solar energy space. And we also store all of our data on European servers. So the message there for you guys is that your data is in very safe hands. And your data is, as I said, on European servers. We meet the latest information security standards, so that ISO 27001. We have regular cybersecurity audits performed by renowned third-party companies. So they'll essentially try to do a, like what we call penetration tests, like they'll try to hack our systems in a way, and they'll be doing that periodically to make sure that, there are no weaknesses there and that we are really, maintaining those systems at the highest level possible. And then lastly, all of our coders, all of our developers, they have to go through a mandatory secure coding training to make sure that they're essentially doing their job with best practice data protection measures. Okay, so looking to the battery side of things, why is the time ripe now for getting a battery? So I was talking about how without a battery, you can feed in power to the grid, and you get, in some instances, a feed-in tariff for this. So the grid provider will pay you, or whoever your electricity provider will pay you a certain amount for feeding in power to the grid. Now, feed-in tariffs are very, very low nowadays. Okay, they used to be a lot higher. So, back around 2008 to 2011, feed-in tariff schemes started back then, right? So back around that period, 2008, 2011, in many states, you could have 44 cents to 60 cents, something like that. And that was to encourage uptake of solar. Okay, but now it can be as low as 2 cents, something like that, right? Depending on where you are. We also have very strict export limits in some areas, right? So some grid operators will say you're only allowed to export this amount back to the grid. There's also schemes like flexible exports where, that might change at different times. So you're allowed to export X amount at one time and then maybe a lower amount at a different time of the day. We also have different regulations where, like the emergency backstop, where, essentially the grid operator will want to have control over the solar system to ramp it down at certain times or potentially even shut it off if they deem it appropriate at a certain time. And the reason why all of these regulations and different strategies or schemes are in place is for grid stability, right? So essentially, during the middle of the day when there's a lot of people now with solar and, they could potentially have been exporting all of that back to the grid, it could be too much for the grid to handle, right? So they don't want that. And then there might be times of the day, later at night, where it could be quite helpful for the grid to have some of that solar power or battery power coming back in, right? So essentially, we now have things like, sun tax or two-way tariffs, where you might be charged for exporting to the grid if you're doing it at a time of the day where the grid operator really doesn't want it coming through, or you could be incentivized to send it to the grid at a time of the day, say later on in the afternoon or in the evening, where the grid operator says, hey, it's really helpful to have power coming in from households or businesses, etc. Right? There's also VPP options, so virtual power plants. This is a really interesting space where essentially, you'll have a lot of distributed energy sources. So different, say in our example, we're going to have different households with solar and battery storage, right? And then we'll have this VPP operator, which will connect all those systems via smart software and then manage how the energy is flowing amongst those people that are part of that VPP, right? And there can be benefits there to having a battery, and you know, you can make money essentially there through those schemes. So very interesting space. Highly recommend doing a bit more reading or watching some more videos on that, because there's a lot that we could talk about. And then last but not least, obviously, the federal battery rebate. So since that was introduced in the middle of this year, it's really increased the uptake of batteries, because essentially, along with all of these other things I've talked about, the economics really stack up, right? So you can save a lot off your total battery installation, right? Depending on how much you get installed on site, you can save a lot there. So the economics really makes sense for a lot of people now, and that's why industry has gone gangbusters since it was introduced. So looking at some of the benefits there on top of what I already just talked about. So we covered storing that free energy, right? So that energy that's coming from solar, it's free energy, and instead of you know, not storing it and then having to buy back more expensive energy from the grid later on, right? What you can do is store that and then utilize it later on, you know, in the late afternoon or at night when there is no solar generation to power your loads, right? Then you've got energy independence. So that includes home backup. So if there's a grid outage or grid maintenance, you can still have your house running. Okay, you know, we're seeing more extreme weather events which can impact the grid. So storms and floods, bushfires. You know, when there's a blackout, your battery keeps your essentials running when the grid can't. And in general, just having more self-reliance and the grid operators having less control over your energy management and the associated costs that come with that. You're also locking in your energy costs now. Okay, this is a long-term investment, so you're protected from rising energy costs. Okay, so you will see benefits and savings now, but potentially even higher benefits going into the future. And then lastly, for those of you that have a sustainability mindset or really care about this, you know, you can feel good about producing clean energy and then using a lot of that clean energy for your home or at your business. Okay, looking at the Reserva, so what a lot of you are here to find out more detail about. So a quick snapshot of what the Reserva is. Marcus will go into more detail. It is a modular battery. So it starts at 2 modules and goes up to 5 modules. So that's 6.3 kilowatt hours up to 15.8 kilowatt hours. Okay, it's a high voltage battery. So a high voltage DC coupled battery, as I said before. So DC coupling and high voltage technology allows for high efficiencies with very little losses. It's lithium iron phosphate battery chemistry, so proven to be very safe, you know, a very safe battery chemistry with a long lifetime. It's been around for a long time. So proven technology, and then lastly, European design, support, and that data security, which I touched on. In terms of the inverter compatibility, it will be compatible with the Gen24 Plus. So the Primo Gen24 Plus, which is single phase, comes in power classes 3, 4, 5, 6, 8, and 10 kilowatts. And then the Simo Gen24 Plus, the 3-phase version, it comes in power classes 3, 4, 5, 6, 8, 10, and 12 kilowatts, okay? Just note, if you go for the 3, 4, or 5, you cannot do what we call full backup on that inverter. You'd be limited to our PV Point or PV Point Advanced options. We've done a whole webinar on backup solutions if you want to check that out and learn a bit more, but just one thing to note there. Then we've got the Verto Plus, which isn't released yet, so it should be here in the first half of next year. So that's purely for three-phase. So if you, those of you out there with large houses or maybe a small business owner out there, it's essentially going to come in 15, 20, 25, 30, and 33.3. Okay, so if you've already got a Gen24 inverter, you're essentially halfway there. The Reserva is built to plug straight in. You essentially just need to upgrade that inverter to a Gen24 Plus. So the battery, the DC coupled battery connection is not active in the Gen24. You essentially just upgrade it via license upgrades. That's done online. It's kind of like a software upgrade, a bit different, but it's done online. And then once you have it upgraded to a Gen24 Plus, you can essentially add on that DC coupled battery like the Reserva. So the Fronius Gen24 Plus and the Verto Plus, they've been designed, to work, hand in glove. It's one system in a way, and also one warranty, because it's all under the one umbrella, and Marcus will touch on that as well. So yeah, really easy to get your Gen24 ready to have that battery attached. All right, so looking at the feature overview, so essentially it's a very slim design. So one of the slimmest batteries on the market. Modular storage, so I touched on that before. So essentially what that means is you can retrofit. So you can start with a small amount of storage and then build up as necessary. It also has high storage capabilities as well with multiple stacks. So it really gives you a lot of flexibility for different energy needs now and into the future. It has high charge and discharge rates, particularly on the three-phase. So say with the Simo Gen24 Plus, you could have 11.26 kilowatts being discharged over 3 phases, right? Then the LED status, so there's LED lights on the front, so it shows you the charge status, various battery functions to help with energy management, the strict BAB security, already covered that, and single source manufacturer. So many people just want everything under the one umbrella. So before we didn't have our own battery, we were partnering with other battery manufacturers, and we still will do that with very reliable, reputable battery manufacturers. However, some people want everything under the one umbrella, so now you have it.
So about the high charging and discharging rates. So now we're looking at our Simo product range, our three-phase product range, differing from the 3 kilowatt Gen24 Plus to the 12 kilowatt Gen24 Plus SC in this case. So the max charging rate is actually 11.26 kilowatt, which is pretty massive in my opinion on a Gen24 Plus.
And it's going to be even higher, right, with the Verto Plus, Marcus?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Verto Plus will be able to deliver up to 16.38 kilowatt on a three-phase house. So yes.
Yeah, awesome.
Continuing to the next slide, let's have a look at our Primo range, the Primo 3 to 10 product range. So the highest three-phase inverter is actually a 10 kilowatt inverter, which can charge or discharge the battery with up to 6.75 kilowatt. You may wonder why it's only going to a 9.5 kilowatt hour battery. The reason for that is the voltage range on the Gen24. You can still increase the capacity per site. That would mean you need to parallel multiple battery towers to increase the capacity. We can add up to 4 towers, which we explore in the next slide on a single phase setup. Let's have a look about the maximum what's possible in terms of storage capacity with the Reserva connected to a Primo Gen24, Simo Gen24, or Verto Plus. So max three phase on a Simo Gen24 Plus will be 63 0.2 kilowatt hours. So that's 4 stacks. The maximum capacity on a single phase inverter, so on our Primo Gen24 Plus range, will be 38 kilowatt hours. And for the Averto Plus, it will be also 63.2 kilowatt hours. So 4 towers with maximum sizing. So the parallel stacks must be the same size. So that means if one stack has, for example, 3 battery modules, if you add a second one, it also needs to have 3 battery modules. No combiner box required or needed means that in some setups or with some manufacturers, if you have multiple towers, you need to have a different additional device installed, which needs to be mounted to the wall, which has some electronics in it, etc., etc. With our Reserva setup, there is no extra combiner box required.
Yeah, Marcus, I was actually talking to a few installers about that, and yeah, the cost savings are quite a lot in terms of having that combiner box. So yeah, that's obviously going to flow on to the end customer, but also aesthetics as well. So I guess it's a bit cleaner without that combiner box.
Yeah, saves you money, time, yeah, and looks way better in having less boxes on the wall installed somewhere. Talking about expansion. So the Reserva is an expandable modular system. So it's very easy to add new modules. You just pretty much put new modules on top. So you're not locked into a certain storage size. So for example, you can start with a smaller tower or smaller stack and then increase that as you go, or add another tower as you go.
Marcus, might be good to mention any restrictions here with adding on a module. You know, we've talked about this in the past, and yeah, if you can do it at any time in the future or not.
Yeah, perfectly. Very good point. So you can actually do it anyway further down the track or further down the road, so to say. The only thing I would like to mention or make you guys aware of is if you upgrade after 2 years and add a battery after 2 years. So every battery does age very slowly though, but it does age. So which means it reduces its capacity. So you know that from your phone after a couple of years, it doesn't hold the charge as good anymore as it was in the beginning. So if you would add another battery module, so not a tower, another battery module after 2 years, the new battery module would max operate at the same capacity as the old ones. So if you do want to upgrade, I would highly recommend to do it within the 2 years. You can still do it later on, but you will lose some of the capacity. Or you can also upgrade in adding another tower, then you're not so much affected by that. Slim and sleek, we just wanted to showcase how slim the Reserva actually is. It's always tricky and difficult to see a product on the picture because they all look good, but how does it look in real life and how can I compare it to things I know? So on the left-hand side, you see a picture of a smartphone. It's actually not thicker than your normal smartphone you would have around. So it looks great, it looks slim, it's a nice design, it's not too overpowering. So yeah, it's a very good aesthetic looking product. And also on the right hand side, you see the measurements for a 4 battery Reserva. Here are some further dimensions. So in case you're interested in the Reserva battery, what the heights and widths are and how many battery modules can be added. So up to 5 per tower. On the right hand side, you see the 15.8 for our 3-phase setup is the maximum size per tower. And then you could maybe add multiple towers as well. While we're talking about multiple towers, we're also currently planning on a solution for an easy install with multiple towers, for example, in front of each other, if that makes sense, depending on the installation, location and size. So the highest stack would be 1.6 meter high. So that's the highest stack on a 3-phase setup. On a single phase setup, the 9.5 kilowatt hour battery module would be 1 meter and 10. So perfect to install the inverter actually above, for example. It's not just all about battery capacity, it's also about battery functionality and battery functions. And that's where a lot of things start and where we would like to explain things in a little bit more detail. So if we look, for example, at the left-hand side, black start, what does black start mean? So black start means you have an extended grid outage for whichever reason, and the battery completely discharges overnight through your backup components. So the battery is pretty much flat. The next day, sun rises, everything is more or less getting back to normal. That means if the system is able to start up, from that I have the battery is empty and the system is able to start up, operate normal and support your backup loads, that means it is black start capable. Just be aware, not all inverters and not all systems on the market are able to do that. So if you live in an area where I live, where we have regularly week-wise grid outages, then it's very good, and you can be rest assured that the system starts up actually in the morning if it happens that you actually use all of your energy. Then we have advanced battery control features. So for example, if there is a severe weather event planned or a grid outage, you can actually change or charge the battery directly to the SoC you wanted it to be with just one push in the app. So on the bottom, in the middle here, you can see the app. So you just would click on start or tap on start, and the battery would automatically charge to 100% to be ready when the grid outage or the grid maintenance happens. You can also use the most with time of use tariffs or time of use settings. So you can actually say to the battery, charge or discharge at certain time with various powers to have it as you would like it to be. So for example, if you want to have your battery always fully charged at a certain time, you can certainly do that, even if the power from your panels is not enough. So it's a very flexible, and we have very cool features and functionalities included in the system. We also the Reserva has an LED.
Sorry, just quickly, I just want to say we are constantly improving our functionality and user experience as well to make energy management as simple and effective as possible for our customers. So, you know, that's essentially a lot of what Marcus's team will deal with. They deal with R&D to make sure that we, are essentially getting the things that our customers need and want, and yeah, through software updates, we're able to provide more functionality into the future as well. So like that battery control function wasn't there when we released the Gen24, but then it came out later on, for example. Sorry, Marcus, you continue.
No worries, thank you for throwing that in. The Reserva also has an interface directly on the front of the system, which is very simple. It gives you exactly what you would need. So for example, if the Reserva is installed in the battery, you can see the SoC, so the state of charge directly. You can see if the battery is charging, discharging, or if there is any error on the battery. So it's so easy, you don't need to touch any button or work around on the battery. You just see it straight away in front of the Reserva. Another thing I would really love to mention here is our proven service and local support capability, and that's also what we really known of. So it's one manufacturer, you have one warranty, you have pretty much one point of contact more or less. So installers not ever able to do comprehensive troubleshooting. If there is any issue, we have phone support in several languages and time zones for our installers and for our end customers, of course, and we do have advanced online support tools available.
Yeah, that's probably more attractive, I guess, for installers, as their support is all within the one brand, but that definitely affects the end customer as well, because the better support there is for their installer, the better it is for your experience over the lifetime of your system. So I also know there are end customers that care about this and have been asking about this as well, having everything under the one umbrella, like we said before. So yeah, if you do think that's something that's important to you, why don't you pop a comment in the chat to let us know? It'd be interesting to see.
Yeah, of course. I mean, we take care of our partners and our customers. I mean, that's how it always was, and that's how it always will be. That being said, it brings me to our concept of the Fronius ecosystem. So Fronius is not just, as Patrick was mentioning it in the beginning, a welding machine manufacturer, charging manufacturer, and a inverter manufacturer. We're also doing things in our ecosystem. So our product portfolio, for example, includes EV chargers as well. So hybrid inverters, DC coupled batteries, EV chargers, on what we call sector coupling, so integrating different energy consumers in the house. We do have, for example, on the heating side, we do have on the right-hand side, you can see that little component, which is called the ohm pilot. So the ohm pilot is able to control heat rods on boilers, for example, to control your hot water when you actually have excess energy, for example. In terms of e-mobility, we do have the Watt Pilot. So you see on the left-hand side picture, the right-hand side, the Reserva, the Watt Pilot Flex, our soon to be released EV charger, which you can also then control, configure from the app directly to whatever need you have from the ecosystem. So it's all in one hand, which is very, very interesting. Another thing I would like to mention is the vehicle to X ready capability of the Watt Pilot Flex. So it's a big topic. It's also included, of course, in our sector coupling vision for bidirectional charging in the future. Just quickly to mention it, we do have, or I do have a colleague, a solutions engineer, Jordi, who looks after the EV related things. So you also might find on YouTube some Watt Pilot Flex webinars with further and deeper information. He also wrote a very interesting blog article about where bidirectional charging is at and what the future most likely looks at. Here you see the Fronius ecosystem and how it would look on the monitoring. I don't really want to overwhelm you, and also looking at the time with too many things. The only quick things I wanted to mention here on the right-hand side, for example, you can actually if you have an ohm pilot on a boiler as well, you can actually, for example, say, do charge the battery at least until 70% before you actually charge or before you actually heat the water. So in the picture here, you see this little hilly graph, more or less. So you see on the green, the green area, the green surface is actually what the power towards the battery. The gray area is the power fed into the grid, and at the same time you see the red line, which is actually the heating temperature. So the ohm pilot would heat accordingly your hot water system to make most use of your energy. And then last but not least, you come home around lunchtime, for example, you had half a day work at the office, come home, and then you charge up your car. So you see the purple area is actually the Watt Pilot, which is charging your car. And all in all, you didn't use a lot of energy from the grid, so specifically pretty much zero. So that would bring us to the complete integration slide. So we do have smart management and monitoring solutions, which through our Solar Web Monitoring. So the Solar Web Monitoring can be used on your desktop computer or can be used on your phone or tablet via the app, where you can see all the energy flows, the energy consumption in whichever way that goes. And you can also set and program different things, as I mentioned before, on the battery side. So it's good visibility is actually very good, because you then also know when it's a good time to use the energy and when you have excess energy and things like that.
Yeah, I also wanted to mention here, Marcus, that we're looking to make the user experience even better for our customers. So over the coming years, you will see the Solar Web Monitoring platform and app change a bit, but it'll obviously be for the better, and it'll include more functionality for you guys.
Yeah, absolutely. Quick summary before we wrap up on the Reserva side. So Reserva is a slim profile battery, so it fits perfect in smaller spaces, narrower spaces. It's the perfect battery for homeowners as well as small business owners, because it's a modular storage. It's flexible, so you have large storage capacities up to 63 kilowatt hours on three phase and 38 kilowatt hours on single phase, with high charge and discharge rates up to 11.26 kilowatts on the Reserva GEN24 Plus. It's easy and fast to be installed, so that's why installers also like that product. You can be rest assured with European data security. We have battery functions, as mentioned before, energy management, which we're going to improve and add more as we go. We have a seamless integration with SolarWeb, so holistic monitoring solution, where you can also see the Watt Pilot, our EV charger, or the Ohm Pilot, our hot water solution. And another big advantage would be single source manufacturer, which is very well known for high quality service and support.
Great. Thank you so much, Marcus, for taking us through that.
Pleasure.
We've essentially reached the end now. So if you want to leave us a nice review, probably, more for those, existing customers and fans, share a story and a review. They really help us. But if you're a potential customer and just loves our company for whatever reason that may be, that would also be really nice. We'll also be taking some questions now quickly. We have run over time, so we'll just take a few. Marcus, feel free to jump in with any questions you saw that were interesting. I'll have a look through as well. But we will get back to everyone after the webinar. We'll also do a frequently asked question mail out too. All right, so someone had asked about which Fronius inverter is compatible with BYD batteries or other brand batteries. So essentially all of our Gen24 Plus series and the Verto Plus range will be compatible with the Fronius Reserva, and then some BYD batteries like the BYD Battery Box Premium, HVM, HVS, that's compatible with the Gen24 Plus right now. We're also looking at other battery manufacturers as well to partner with.
Beautiful. I saw one as well. When the Reserva will be available in Australia, it is now available, so you can purchase it or order it now. So maybe just touch base with your installer in regards to availability. And also one quick other point, which I saw earlier quite often, is if you have a Gen24 installed already at your home, via a licensing update, you can update a Gen24 to make it a Gen24 Plus, as Pat was mentioning it, to be able to connect a battery. So for further information, I would recommend to also touch base with your installer in guiding you through the process.
Someone has asked about the difference between a module and a tower. So a tower, or a stack as we're calling it, a battery stack, it's made up of multiple modules. So yeah, that's what we call this modular battery. And then you'll have your BMS unit on top, which will do some of the control. So, and that's where you'll have your connections going in as well. So that's essentially what we mean by modules and stacks. Essentially, yeah, multiple modules will make up one stack, and depending on how many modules you have, you'll have either more or less amount of energy storage. But as I said, you can also retrofit. So you can start off with, say, 3 modules, and then maybe go up to 4 modules later, as an example. All right. Someone had asked about the IP rating of the battery. So it is IP65 rated. It can be installed outside, preferably if you have like a garage or a cellar or something like that. It's better, especially if temperatures get quite hot. But it can be installed outside. We just recommend it having protection. So it shouldn't be installed in an area where it's going to have a lot of direct sunlight, for example.
I saw also one question if the support is available in Australia. So yes, we have a local support team based out of Melbourne and based in Perth, WA, to cover all the time zones around Australia and New Zealand for the best support possible for installers and of course our direct customers.
Someone had asked about, with a 5 kilowatt inverter, what is the highest stack you can have? Now, if it was a 5 kilowatt Simo Gen24 Plus, that's the 3-phase inverter, then you could have the 15.8 kilowatt hour stack. Okay, so that's the largest stack. However, with the single phase, so say the Primo Gen24 Plus 5 kilowatt inverter, you can only have up to 9.5 kilowatt hours. Okay, so it depends if we're talking about single phase or 3-phase.
and that's only per tower, but you can also install multiple towers in both scenarios.
Yes, yeah, so just per tower, so in terms of the highest tower you can have, it's that, but as Marcus touched on during the presentation, you can have multiple of those operating in parallel. Someone had asked about, does the battery need to sit on the floor or wall mounted? So it's typically will sit on the floor. I know there was a question that came in from an installer, Marcus, about trying to mount it on a wall. Not sure if you had any more information to give there.
I mean, by design, it's a floor-mounted battery solution, but we're certainly looking at if there is a wall-mounted option available. And so our R&D is currently actually looking into a potential wall-mount solution, because in some occasions it actually does make sense. So we keep you guys posted whenever we have a wall-mounted solution available, so wall bracket more or less. One question was as well if there is a deeper technical webinar on the Reserva. So yes, there is a more installer-focused webinar available, which I think you can also find on YouTube directly with deeper information on setup and etc.
That's right. Yeah, that is available online already.
Another interesting one is if the battery needs to be directly next to the inverter. So it really depends on the circumstances and also on the capacity of the battery and how many towers or stacks you might have. You can extend, the battery can be quite a distance away, but it really, again, depends on the sizing regarding to the length, but it doesn't need to be next to each other. It often makes sense, but it doesn't have to be.
Yeah, someone has asked again about the Gen24 upgrade process. So yes, it's simply done by an online upgrade. Then installer will need to do that. So end customers can't do that, but yeah, your installer is going to have to install the battery anyway. So they'll do that process for you. For those of you that stuck around, thank you, and sorry for running over time. As I said, we will aim to get back to, or we will get back to all of you that, for questions that we didn't answer, we'll get back to you. And we'll also do a mail out with some frequently asked questions to everybody that attended the webinar as well. Okay. And for those of you that are coming to All Energy in a week's time, please stop by the stand. Both Marcus and I will be there. And yeah, you can hit us up with any other further questions that you have then as well.
Hello.
Yes, yeah, would love to see you. All right, take care. Have a great evening. Enjoy whatever yummy dinner you've got ready for you, and we'll see you next time. See you guys.
Thank you so much. See ya. Bye.